Okay, here we go. We're working now. All right. So today we're continuing with word problems. Let's get this a little bit better, and I need to get some lights shut off. We actually have sunlight today. Okay. With this, we're getting into more in-depth word problems with what we're working with. So we still have to define the variable. We're just going to have two scenarios that we're talking about in these. So we're going to still define the variable, set up an equation and solve, and then make sure that we answer the question that's being asked. So still the same processes as before. All right, so it says one number is 12 less than the another number. So we've got two numbers we're talking about, okay? So we're going to say let x equal one of the numbers. And then we've got to talk about this right here is how they're related to one another. Well, it says one number is 12 less than another number. So 12 less than another number. So I'm going to say x is going to actually be the another number. One number is 12 less than another number. So I'm going to say x is another number, and x minus 12, because it's 12 less than, so that means the 12 has to go behind it. X minus 12 is going to represent the one number in this scenario. So this is, because it says one number is 12 less than another number. Then it tells me some more information. So now it talks about total. Total here means I'm adding the two together. The total of the two numbers is 154. That means I'm doing another number plus one number equals 154. So I'm going to take the algebraic expression that we have for each and plug it in. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to plug it in here. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to plug it in here. So now the equation that I'm going to have is x plus x minus 12 equals 154. This is my equation. So this is part 2. This is part 1 where we define the variable. So this is define the variable. This was writing the equation. And now we solve. So I'm going to combine my like terms. And I end up with 2x minus 12 equals 154. Since I'm subtracting 12, I'm going to add 12 to both sides. And I end up with 2x equals 166. Divide by 2, divide by 2, and I get x equals 83. So that means when I'm looking at this right here, the another number is 83, but I've got to find both numbers because it says find both numbers. Find both numbers. So I have to have both. If I just get x, I haven't finished the problem. So now I have to work over here and I have to do 83 minus 12, which that's going to give me 71. So my answer is 83 comma 71. This is the part 3 from up here. So we defined the variable, that's this right here. We set up the equation, which is this right here, and then we answered it. This right here. All right. Now I'm going to move a little bit faster, not much faster, but we'll go through the different parts. So let's look at number 2. All right, so it says the sum of two numbers. So I've got the sum of two numbers. So I'm going to have, oh, but then if I continue reading, so I've got the sum, that means I'm going to add, is 80. I've got a larger number and I have a smaller number. So since it's the sum of the two numbers, I know I'm going to have small plus large equals the 80. I've got that in my brain already. Now, this second sentence here is going to talk to me about how the numbers are related. It says the large number is 4 more than 3 times the smaller number. So if I want to change that straight from words to symbols, I'm going to actually move this information. Well, larger number is 4 more than 3 times the smaller number. Well, the one I know the least about is the smaller number. So I'm going to let X represent the smaller number. And then it says the larger number is, so therefore I'm going to say that something's going to represent the larger number. 4 more than 3 times the smaller. So my smaller is X, so I'm going to have 3X, and then more than is plus, so plus 4, and that's going to represent the larger number. So now I'm going to take this information and I'm going to plug it in. X is for the smaller, so I'm going to have X plus 3X plus 4 is for the large, so I'm going to have 3X plus 4 equals 80. So here's my equation, which is, that's part 2. This right here is part 1, and you have to have all parts. And now we solve for the rest of it. So I've got my combining my like terms. So this is going to give me 4X plus 4 equals 80. Subtract 4, subtract 4. 4X equals 76. Divide by 4, divide by 4, and X equals 19. Now, notice my question is, again, find both numbers. Well, when I find the X, I've found the smaller one, not both. So now I plug in, and I have 3 times 19 plus 4. So we plug in to find other number. Plug in to find the other number. All right, so now I've got 3 times 19. There's 3 times 19. That's 57. So I have 57 plus 4, and that's going to give me 61. So I have that the larger number is 61. The smaller number is 19. So my answer is 19, comma, 61. And there's part 3. Okay, here we go. Moving right along, number 3. In Mrs. Middleton's math class, there are 7 more boys than girls. If there are 29 total, that's going to be boys plus girls equals 29. When it says 29 total, that's boys plus girls equals 29. Students in the class, how many boys are there? So I want to know how many boys there are. Normally your question is what your variable will be, but not necessarily. Based on this information, it says there are 7 more boys than girls. So which one is there more of? Boys. So therefore, the one that's the smaller one, we're going to make X, the one I know the least about. I know the least about the girls because we've got a description for the boys. So I'm going to say let X equal number of girls. And then it says 7 more boys than girls. So therefore, that's the amount of girls plus boys. So I'm going to have X plus 7 because it is the girls plus 7 equals the number of boys. So there's part 1. Now we're working on part 2. And part 2 is where we're kind of looking at this right here where it says 29 total. So I'm doing boys plus girls. So that's going to give me x plus 7 plus x because it's the boys plus the girls equals 29. And this is part 2. There's my equation. And now we solve. So I combine my like terms. So I have 2x plus 7 equals 29. Subtract 7, subtract 7. 2x equals 22. Divide by 2, divide by 2, and I get x equals 11. Well, remember, x is the girls, so the 11 is going to go up here, and then I have to figure out the boys. So I'm going to do 11 plus 7, which gives me 18. Now, if I just do x equals 11, that's not giving me my answer because it wants to know how many boys. So I have to answer the question that it's asking. So my answer is 18 boys, and it is only that number. But I have to find the number of girls in order to be able to answer this question. Okay, moving right along. We're going to move to the next page at this point. Flip this over. And we're going to look at number 6. Okay, it says Ryan has one less than 4 times the number of songs on the iPad that Olivia has. So this is kind of how they're related. Which one do I know the least about? Olivia. So therefore, because Ryan's depending upon Olivia, so we're going to say let X represent Olivia. Okay. And then we've got a description for Ryan. So it's 1 less than. Since it's 1 less than, we flip the order, and then it's 4 times Olivia's. So this is going to be 4x minus 1, and that's going to represent Ryan's amount of songs. There's part 1. Now we go on to writing our equation. This is our next sentence. It says, in total, they have 469 songs. That means I've got Olivia plus Ryan equals 469. The second sentence here is my representation for my equation. So now I plug in, and I'm going to have x plus 4x minus 1 equals 469. There's part 2, my equation. And now we solve. X plus x is going to give me 5x minus 1 equals 469. So I add 1, and we get 5x equals 470. Divide by 5, and I have x equals 94. Now, we want to know how many songs does Olivia have? So my question is, I want to know the amount of songs for Olivia. What does X represent? X is representing Olivia. So this is 94 right here. So I don't have to go any further. I don't need to plug in because it's only asking me to find Olivia. So my answer is 94 songs. Olivia has 94 songs. That's all it's asking me to find. Now, if it were asking for Ryan's, then I would have to plug it in, but it doesn't want to know Ryan's. It wants to know Olivia's. So I'm done. This was part 3. Okay, number 7. Logan and Zoe went out to dinner. Zoe's dinner bill was $5 more than half of Logan's bill. So Zoe's depends on Logan's. So right now I'm thinking that Logan is going to be my X because that's the one I know the least about. So I'm going to let X equal Logan's bill. And then I talk about how are they related. So Zoe's is 5 more than half, 1/2 of Logan's. So I'm going to have 1/2 x plus 5 equals Zoe's bill. And then, so this is part 1 where I define my variables. Now we're on to part 2 where I write my equation. So it says if the total of the two bills was $60.26, so therefore I'm going to have Logan plus Zoe equals the $60.26. So I'll plug in my information and I'm going to have x plus 1/2 x plus 5 equals 60.26. Now, since I'm dealing with decimals here, I'm going to actually change this 1/2 to be 0.5. So I'm just continuing to deal with decimals. It's not worth it to try and deal with 2 different representations in the same one. All right, here we go. So there's my equation. So this is part 2. And now we solve. So I have x plus 0.5x. So that's going to give me 1.5x because that's understood to have a 1 right there. So 1.5x plus 5 equals 60.26. Subtract 5. Subtract 5. You got to make sure that you line up those decimals correctly, because if you don't, that's where you're going to mess yourself up with this subtraction. So now I have 1.5x equals, I'm kind of moving over here so I have room. 6 minus 0 is 6. 2 minus 0 is 2. Can't do this here, so I've got to borrow. 10 minus 5 is 5. So we end up with 55.26. And now we divide by 1.5. Divide by 1.5. And x equals 36.84. And you would do this calculation off to the side. So I'm going to have 1.5 on the outside and 55.26 here. Got to move the decimal once, got to move the decimal once. So my decimal is located here. And then you would do that long division off to the side. Now it wants to know what was Zoe's dinner. So I'm looking for Zoe's dinner. Zoe's dinner. Oh, that's this one. So I've got to take this number and plug it in. So I have to do 1/2 times 36.84 plus 5. So I've got to do half of this. Which that's going to give me 18.42 plus 5. So we end up with Zoe's dinner equaling $23.42. And that's Zoe's. There's part 3. Okay, one last one down here at the bottom. This is where we're talking about consecutive integers, okay? Consecutive means like one after another, okay? So consecutive would be like numbers 2, 3, 4. Those are consecutive. So you've got the sum of 2. Sum means I'm adding. Well, we're going to let x represent the first integer, which would be this one here. What do I have to do to go from 2 to 3? Add 1. So the second integer is going to be x plus 1. So the first consecutive integer is x. The second consecutive integer is x plus 1. And then it says the sum, and it wants me to find both integers. So here is part 1. And now we go on to part 2, where it's the sum of. So I'm going to be doing the first plus the second equal to 113. We're doing the first integer plus the second integer equals 113. So I'm going to have x plus x plus 1 equals 113. This is my equation, so that's part 2. And now we solve. So I have 2x plus 1 equals 113. Subtract 1, subtract 1. 2x equals 112. Divide by 2, divide by 2, and x equals 56. So I've got the first one is 56, and we plug in, which means we're actually just adding 1. So therefore, my two numbers are 56 and 57, because it says find the integers. That means I'm finding both. So here is my answer for part 3. Your assignment is to finish the notes and the classwork homework. Have a great day.